Have you ever spent your entire Sunday evening staring at your phone, replaying a conversation you had 3 days ago? Or perhaps you've laid awake at 2 a.m., mentally drafting an email to convince someone, a boss, a partner, a sibling, to finally see things your way. We've all been there. We live in a world that tells us if we just work harder, speak louder, or care more, we can influence the world around us. We treat people like projects to be managed and opinions like battles to be won. But here is the cold, hard truth. You are exhausted because you are trying to control the uncontrollable. You are burnt out not because of your workload, but because of the emotional labor of carrying everyone else's choices on your shoulders. Think about the mental tabs open in your brain right now. The friend who didn't invite you to that brunch, the coworker who is undermining your project, the family member who keeps making the same self-destructive mistakes despite your best advice. Every time you obsess over their behavior, you are handing them the remote control to your happiness. You are waiting for them to change so that you can finally feel okay. What if I told you there's a way to take that remote back? It doesn't require a complex strategy or a life-altering confrontation. It only requires two of the most powerful words in the English language. Let them. Let them isn't about giving up. It's about growing up. It's the radical realization that your peace is worth more than your need to be right. When you stop wasting your energy on people who aren't asking for your help or meeting your expectations, something miraculous happens. You get your life back. You find the space to breathe, to create, and to finally focus on the one person you actually have the power to change: yourself. It is time to stop being the unpaid director of everyone else's movie. It's time to step out of the drama and into your own power. To understand how we got so tangled in everyone else's business in the first place, we have to look at where all this energy is actually going. Chapter 1. Don't waste your life on things you can't control. Have you ever felt like you're screaming into a vacuum? You give the best advice, you work harder than anyone in the room, and you exhaust yourself trying to keep everyone else's life on the tracks. But despite your Herculean efforts, the world still spins into chaos, and people still make choices that drive you absolutely crazy. Our deepest fear isn't actually failure, it's irrelevance. We are terrified that if we don't intervene, if we don't fix the situation, or if we don't force someone to see our point of view, everything will fall apart, and we will be forgotten in the wreckage. This desperate need for validation drives us into a toxic trap, trying to manage things that were never ours to hold.
Think of your mind like a smartphone with exactly 100% battery for the day. There is no portable charger, no wall outlet. Every time you obsess over what your boss thinks of you, you drop 10%. Every time you try to convince your stubborn sibling to change their lifestyle, you burn 20%. The principle is simple. Control is a finite resource. When you spend it on external variables, things outside your skin, you go bankrupt on the things that actually matter. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between worrying about a problem and solving it. When you fixate on other people's actions, your brain stays in a high-rev neutral gear. You're burning fuel like crazy, but the car isn't moving an inch.
Let me tell you about Sarah, a high-achieving project manager in New York City. Sarah was what we call a Type A powerhouse. One Tuesday, Sarah walked into a high-stakes pitch. She had spent all night perfecting every slide. But 10 minutes in, the lead investor started checking his watch and yawning. Sarah felt the heat rise in her chest. She started talking faster. She got louder. She tried to force him to be interested through sheer willpower. The result? She looked desperate, and the investor walked out. A month later, Sarah tried a different approach. Different investor, same bored attitude. This time, Sarah felt the familiar spike of panic, but she whispered to herself, "Let him be bored." By letting him have his own reaction, she stopped fighting the room. She stopped trying to win his face and started focusing on her own delivery.
Paradoxically, because she wasn't chasing him, he started leaning in. She closed the deal. Why did Sarah win? Because she removed the resistance. When you try to control someone, they feel the energetic push, and their natural instinct is to push back. But when you say, let them, you remove the friction. Now, let's do a power audit. First, grab a notebook and draw 2 columns. In the left column, list everything that is giving you a headache: the traffic, the economy, your partner's mood. In the right column, write down exactly what you can do right now to make your own life better. The next time you feel that control itch, say it out loud. I allow them to be whoever they are, and I allow myself to be at peace. Real power isn't about moving the pieces on the board. It's about being the only person in the room who isn't shaken when the board moves. Keep your 100% for yourself. But wait, if you just let them do whatever they want, won't people just walk all over you? In the next chapter, we're going to look at the let me half of the equation, and why this mindset is actually the fastest way to earn absolute respect. Don't go anywhere. I know what you're thinking. Mel, if I just let them do whatever they want, won't I become a doormat? Won't my employees slack off, my kids run wild, and my partner take me for granted? It's the ultimate fear that letting go of control means losing your power. We think that by being the fixer, we are being strong. But I want to challenge that. Being a fixer isn't strength, it's a marathon of exhaustion. The let them theory is only half of the bridge. Today, we build the other half. It's time to move from the frustration of watching them to the power of watching you. Welcome to your Let Me era.
Imagine your life is a movie. For years, you've been trying to snatch the remote control out of everyone else's hands so you can change their channel. You want them to be more productive, more loving, or more sensible. The let me principle is about the moment you stop lunging for their remote and realize you've been holding your own the whole time. You just forgot to use it. Let them is about their behavior. Let me is about your boundaries and ambitions. When you stop trying to manage their character arc, you finally have the bandwidth to write your own. It is the radical shift from being a reactor to being a creator.
Let's look at James, a tech lead in Austin. James was drowning. His team was missing deadlines, and his solution was to micromanage every single Slack message. He was working 80 hours a week because he didn't trust them to do it right. He thought he was saving the company, but he was actually suffocating it. James decided to apply the second half of the theory. Step 1, let them fail. He stopped sending the 11 p.m. reminder emails. He let the deadline approach. Step 2, let me lead. Instead of fixing their mistakes, James used that extra 20 hours a week to focus on high-level strategy, the stuff he was actually hired to do. The result? When the team missed a minor milestone and James didn't swoop in to save them, they felt the weight of their own responsibility for the first time. 2 developers stepped up. The slackers realized they couldn't hide behind James anymore. By letting them face the consequences, James allowed himself to finally be the executive he was meant to be. He didn't lose power. He gained a team that actually worked.
Why did this work? Because your subconscious is wired for efficiency. When you play the fixer, you send a signal to everyone around you that says, you don't have to be competent because I will carry you. The moment you pivot to let me, you change the energetic contract. You stop being the safety net and start being the lighthouse. People don't change because you nag them. They change because your new boundaries make their old behavior impossible. Next time you feel a surge of frustration, I want you to perform the pivot. Instead of saying, I need them to stop doing X, ask yourself, what am I going to do now that they are doing X? If they are late for dinner again, let them be late. Let me eat now and enjoy my evening. If they didn't appreciate your hard work, let them be ungrateful. Let me celebrate my own win. If the market is crashing, let it be volatile. Let me look for the new opportunities it creates.
The bottom line, You cannot control the weather, but you can choose to build a house that is stormproof. Your let me era isn't about being selfish, it's about being effective. But what about the people you actually love, the ones it hurts to watch fail? How do you let them when the stakes are high and your heart is involved? In Chapter 3, we dive into the hardest part of this journey, the shock, why letting go feels like losing a limb. See you there.
So, you've tried it. You told yourself, let them. You stayed silent when you wanted to scream. You kept your hands off the steering wheel when you wanted to grab it. And then, it hit you. That cold, hollow feeling in the pit of your stomach. Your heart started racing. Your brain started firing off alarms like a house on fire. You felt like you were disappearing. We need to talk about the shock. Most people quit the let them theory in the first 48 hours because they mistake peace for danger. We are so addicted to the adrenaline of fixing and managing that when we stop, our nervous system goes into withdrawal. You aren't losing your mind. You're just facing the silence of a life you finally stopped trying to micromanage.
Here is the biology of your anxiety. Your brain treats control like a survival mechanism. For years, your subconscious has linked being in charge with being safe. When you choose to let them, you are effectively telling your brain to stand down while a threat in your mind is still active. This creates a physiological shock. Your body floods with cortisol because it doesn't know what to do with all that unused rescue energy. This isn't a sign that you're doing it wrong. It's a sign that your control addiction is finally breaking.
Meet Maria, a mother from Chicago. Her youngest son was 22, living on his own and making a total mess of his finances. Maria spent every waking hour checking his bank balance. She had the login, sending him job listings and lecturing him about credit scores. She was the manager of his life. When Maria started the let them practice, she experienced the shock immediately. On the first night she didn't call him to nag, she couldn't sleep. Her hands were shaking. She felt like a bad mother. But she pushed through the shock. She told herself, let him face his late fees. Let me face my own anxiety. 2 weeks later, the silence paid off. Her son called her, not to argue, but to ask for a loan for the first time with a plan to pay it back. Because she had stepped back, he was forced to step up. But more importantly, the shock in Maria's body eventually settled into something she hadn't felt in decades: quiet. She realized she didn't have to be a 24/7 emergency responder to be a good mom.
Maria's story proves that the discomfort you feel when you let go is actually growth pains. The shock is just your nervous system recalibrating. If you can sit through the first 10 minutes of that itch to intervene, the urge will pass. Your subconscious needs to learn that the world doesn't end just because you aren't holding it together with both hands. The next time someone does something that triggers your need to control and you feel the shock rising in your chest, set a timer for 90 seconds. 2. Do absolutely nothing. Don't text, don't speak, don't fix. Breathe into the discomfort. Science shows that a chemical emotional flush lasts about 90 seconds. If you can outlast the timer, the shock loses its power over you. You are retraining your brain to understand that silence is safety.
The bottom line, the shock is the price of admission for your freedom. You have to be willing to feel the itch in order to stop the scratch. But what if the thing you're trying to control isn't a person? What if it's the stress of life itself? In Chapter 4, we tackle the heavy hitters. Let them stress you out. Why running from anxiety is making it worse. I'll see you in the next one.
We've all been there. You have a massive deadline. The house is a mess, and your inbox is exploding. Your heart is pounding, and your first instinct is to fight it. You tell yourself, I shouldn't be this stressed, or I need to calm down right now. But here is the irony. The more you fight the stress, the more stressed you become. You are essentially pouring gasoline on a fire while screaming at the flames to stop. You're not just stressed about your work anymore, you're stressed about being stressed. What if, instead of running from the pressure, you just stood still? What if you looked at that mounting anxiety and said, "Fine, let it be stressful"?
In physics, there's a simple rule. Resistance creates heat. The same applies to your psychology. Pain times resistance equals suffering. The situation is the pain. Your internal fight against it is the resistance. When you try to force yourself to be calm in a chaotic situation, you are doubling your internal temperature. The let them theory applied to stress means you stop trying to control your physiological response. You allow the stress to exist in the room with you like an annoying roommate, rather than trying to kick it out of a locked house. When you stop fighting the feeling, the suffering part of the equation drops to zero.
Take David, a software founder in Silicon Valley. David was launching a new app, and 48 hours before the release, a major bug crashed everything. His investors were calling, his team was panicking. David felt like his chest was being crushed by a hydraulic press. Usually, David would spend hours trying to meditate his way out of the panic, or snapping at his team to stay calm. It never worked. This time, David tried something radical. He sat at his desk, felt the adrenaline surging through his veins, and said out loud, "Okay, this situation is incredibly stressful. Let it be stressful. My heart is racing, and that's fine. It's just energy." By letting the stress be, David stopped wasting mental energy on self-regulation. He didn't magically become peaceful, he became functional. Because he wasn't fighting his own heart rate, he could actually focus on the code. He stayed up all night, fixed the bug, and launched on time. He was tired, yes, but he wasn't broken. David's breakthrough happened because he realized that adrenaline is just data. It's your body's way of saying, "Hey, this matters." When you let the stress in, you stop viewing it as a sign of weakness and start viewing it as a survival resource. Your subconscious stops seeing stress as the enemy, which allows your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain, to stay online and solve the actual problem. Next time you feel that wave of overwhelm, don't try to breathe it away immediately. Acknowledge it. Say, "Okay, stress is in the room." Give it space. Literally say, "Let this situation be as chaotic as it is. I'm not going to waste energy pretending it's not." Focus on the next micro task. Don't look at the mountain, just look at the next step. By labeling the stress, you create a gap between you and the feeling. You are the observer, not the victim. The bottom line, you don't need to be calm to be capable. You just need to stop fighting the storm inside you so you can navigate the storm outside you. But what happens when the stress isn't coming from your work, but from the voices in the back of the room? What do you do when people are talking behind your back or judging your every move? In Chapter 5, we tackle the big one. Let them think badly of you. The secret to social freedom. You won't want to miss this. Think about the last decision you made. Did you make it because it was truly what you wanted? Or did you make it because you were afraid of how it would look to your neighbors, your mother-in-law, or even strangers on the internet? We spend an agonizing amount of energy trying to curate a version of ourselves that is uncriticizable. We over-explain our choices. We apologize for our boundaries. We stay in jobs we hate and relationships that are dead just to avoid the whispers. But here is the reality. You are exhausting yourself trying to manage a shadow. You cannot control what people think of you. You never could. The moment you decide to stop being the PR manager for your own reputation is the moment you finally become free. It's time for the most radical act of self-love there is, letting them think badly of you. In psychology, we call this the spotlight effect. We overestimate how much people are actually noticing us. In reality, everyone is the hero of their own movie, and they are far too busy worrying about their own flaws to spend much time on yours.
When someone judges you, they aren't actually seeing you. They are seeing a projection of their own insecurities, their own upbringing, and their own limitations. When you try to correct their opinion of you, you are essentially trying to fix a mirror that isn't yours. The let them approach to judgment is simple. Their opinion of you is none of your business.
Take Chloe, a successful lawyer in Seattle. Chloe had spent 10 years building a reputation, but she was miserable. She wanted to quit and start a boutique floral business. The only thing stopping her? The what will they say factor. She could hear the voices already. She's throwing it all away, or I guess she couldn't hack it. She spent months trying to draft a perfect LinkedIn post to explain her move so nobody would think she was failing. Finally, Chloe tried the let them technique. She quit. She didn't write a 1,000-word explanation. When she heard that an old colleague was gossiping about her midlife crisis, she took a deep breath and said, "Let them think I'm crazy. Let them think I failed. Let me be happy." The result? The gossip lasted exactly 3 days before everyone moved on to the next scandal. Meanwhile, Chloe was finally breathing again. By allowing herself to be the villain in someone else's story, she became the hero of her own.
Chloe's breakthrough happened because she realized that misunderstanding is a small price to pay for authenticity. When you stop trying to control your reputation, you gain back all the energy you used to spend on damage control. Your subconscious stops living in a state of hypervigilance. You realize that you don't need a jury to find you innocent in order to live your life. This week, I want you to intentionally do something that might be misunderstood, and don't explain it. Say no to an invite without an excuse. Don't say you're busy, just say you can't make it. Post something you love, even if it's off-brand. When you feel the urge to over-explain, bite your tongue. Repeat the mantra, I am not responsible for their version of me. Watch how much lighter you feel when you aren't carrying everyone else's opinions on your back. The bottom line, you will never be too much for the people who truly belong in your life, and you will always be too much for the ones who don't. So let them be wrong about you. But what about the people who do stay? The ones who are difficult, demanding, or just plain exhausting? How do you apply let them to a relationship you can't just walk away from? In Chapter 6, we're going deep. How to love difficult people without losing yourself. I'll see you there. We all have that one person. Maybe it's a parent who knows exactly how to push your buttons. Maybe it's a sibling who is constantly in a self-inflicted crisis, or a partner who refuses to see things from your perspective. You love them, but loving them feels like a full-time job. You spend your dinners mentally rehearsing how to fix their attitude. You spend your car rides home bracing yourself for their negativity. You've become an emotional renovator, constantly trying to tear down their bad habits and rebuild them into someone who is easier to live with. But here is the hard truth. You cannot renovate a human being who likes their house exactly the way it is. When you try to change someone you love, you aren't practicing love. You are practicing control. And that control is what's killing the relationship. It's time to try something radical. Let them be difficult.
In every relationship, there is a bridge, the connection you share, and a boundary, where you end and they begin. When you try to fix a difficult person, you are crossing the boundary and trying to live their life for them. This creates resentment on both sides. The let them approach to difficult people is called compassionate detachment. It means you keep the bridge open for love, but you build a massive invisible wall at your boundary. You say, I love you, and I am going to let you be exactly as frustrating as you choose to be, but I am not going to join you in the frustration.
Meet Kevin, a teacher from Boston. Kevin dreaded visiting his father because every conversation was a minefield of complaints and criticism. Kevin spent years trying to cheer him up or argue him into being positive. He'd leave every Sunday feeling drained and angry. Last Christmas, Kevin decided to use the let them technique. When his father started complaining about the government, the neighbors, and the weather, Kevin didn't try to change the subject. He didn't try to be positive Polly. He simply sat there, breathed, and thought, let him be miserable. That is his choice. It doesn't have to be my weather. When his father made a snide comment about Kevin's career, instead of defending himself, Kevin just nodded and said, I hear you, Dad. He let his father be wrong. He let his father be difficult. The result? Because Kevin wasn't fighting back, the fire of the argument had no oxygen. For the first time in 10 years, they had a peaceful meal. Kevin didn't change his father, but he changed his own experience of his father. He stopped trying to win, and he started to enjoy his own peace. Kevin's success happened because he realized that a tug of war only works if two people are pulling. The moment you let them be difficult, you drop your end of the rope. Your subconscious stops seeing their behavior as a personal attack and starts seeing it as a them problem. This frees up your mental energy to actually enjoy the parts of the person that aren't difficult, or at the very least, to protect your own joy while you're around them. The next time you are with a difficult person, imagine you are standing on an observation deck at a zoo. Watch them as a scientist would. E.g., oh, look, they are doing that thing again where they criticize the food. Interesting. Remove the I. Instead of they are hurting me, say they are being hurtful. Keep your why. Remind yourself, I am letting them because my peace is more important than being right. Repeat this mantra. Your chaos is not my responsibility.
The bottom line, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people you choose to be around, or how much of your soul you give away to them. But what happens when the difficulty isn't just a bad mood? What happens when someone you love starts acting out, crying for help, or having a full-blown adult meltdown? In Chapter 7, we're tackling the messiest part of human nature, when grown-ups have tantrums, how to stay sane in the middle of someone else's storm. I'll see you there.
We've all seen it. A coworker slams their laptop shut and storms out. A partner starts a circular argument over a dirty dish that somehow turns into a critique of your entire personality. Or maybe it's a friend who sends a 5-paragraph text dripping with drama and accusations. These are adult tantrums, and our first instinct is usually one of two things. We either get defensive and scream back, or we try to soothe them like a panicked flight attendant on a turbulent plane. But here's the truth. When a grown-up is having a meltdown, they are in a state of emotional hijacking. They aren't thinking, they are reacting. And when you try to reason with a storm, you just get wet. It's time to apply the let them rule to the messiest moments of human emotion. Let them have their tantrum. In psychology, we know that when a person's nervous system is overwhelmed, the logical part of their brain, the prefrontal cortex, literally goes offline. They are operating from their primal, emotional brain. In that moment, they are effectively a toddler in a suit. You wouldn't try to explain tax law to a screaming 3-year-old, right? So why do you try to explain logic to a screaming adult? The let them strategy here is to provide a safe container without getting inside it. You allow the emotion to exist, but you refuse to let it dictate your own emotional state. Marcus was a graphic designer in Chicago. His boss, Brenda, was famous for Friday freakouts. She would burst into the office, criticize the work, and demand impossible changes, all while raising her voice. Marcus used to spend his weekends shaking with anger, drafting resignation letters in his head. One Friday, Brenda started her usual explosion. Marcus felt the familiar urge to defend his work and shout back. Instead, he took a breath and whispered, "Let her have her tantrum." He didn't argue, he didn't apologize.
He just sat there with a neutral face, watching her. He realized that Brenda's anger was about her own stress, not his talent. When she finally ran out of breath and asked, "What do you have to say for yourself?" Marcus calmly replied, "I hear that you're frustrated. Let's talk about the solutions on Monday when things are calmer." By letting her have the space to be out of control, Marcus stayed in control. He didn't give her his peace, and strangely, without an audience to fight with, Brenda's tantrum ended much faster.
Marcus succeeded because he recognized that a tantrum is an invitation. The other person is subconsciously inviting you to join them in their chaos, so they don't have to feel alone in it. When you let them, you politely decline the invitation. Your subconscious learns that someone else's volume doesn't have to change your frequency. You stop being a reactor and start being a witness. The next time an adult in your life starts a tantrum, visualize the gray rock. Be as uninteresting and unreactive as a plain gray rock. No big facial expressions, no defensive posture. Use placeholder phrases. Use neutral statements like, "I see you're upset," or "That's an interesting perspective." Physical distance. If the energy is too high, say, "I'm going to let you process this, and we can talk when we're both calm." Then walk away. Repeat this mantra. Their emotional storm is not my weather.
The bottom line, you are not a garbage can for other people's emotional waste. Let them have their feelings, but keep your peace behind a locked door. But what if the hardest part isn't staying calm? What if the hardest part is the guilt you feel for stepping back? In Chapter 8, we're going to tackle the guilt trap. Doing the right thing usually feels wrong. Why your brain lies to you about boundaries. I'll see you there.
Here is the biggest lie your brain has ever told you. If it's the right decision, it will feel good immediately. We've been conditioned to believe that setting a boundary or letting them fail should come with a sense of relief or a halo over our heads. But in reality, when you finally stop rescuing someone, it feels terrible. It feels like you're being cold. It feels like you're being selfish. It feels like you're breaking a law you didn't even know existed. We mistake this bad feeling for a wrong decision. But I'm here to tell you, that guilt isn't your conscience talking. It's just your old programming fighting for its life. In psychology, we call this cognitive dissonance. You are trying to act like a person who values their peace, but your old self, the one who was a people pleaser or a fixer, is screaming that you are in danger. Your brain has spent years wiring self-sacrifice to morality. So when you choose to let them, your brain interprets that as a moral failure. You have to understand that guilt is often just the feeling of outgrowing your old self. If doing the right thing felt easy, everyone would be doing it. The discomfort is the proof that you are actually changing. Lisa was a 55-year-old nurse from Philadelphia. For years, she had been the emergency fund for her 30-year-old brother, who couldn't keep a job. Every time he called with a sob story, Lisa felt a pit of guilt and cut him a check. She was exhausted, and her savings were dwindling. Lisa decided to use the "let them" rule. The next time he called asking for $500, she said, "I love you, but I'm going to let you figure this out on your own." The moment she hung up, she didn't feel empowered. She felt like a monster. She cried. She felt sick to her stomach. Her brain told her, "He's going to end up on the street and it's all your fault." But Lisa stayed strong. She let the wrong feeling be there. A month later, a miracle happened. Her brother, realizing the bank of Lisa was closed, actually took a job at a local warehouse. He wasn't happy about it, but he was functioning. If Lisa had waited until it felt right to say no, she would still be paying his rent today. Lisa's breakthrough was her willingness to sit in the fire of her own guilt. She realized that the guilt wasn't a signal to change her mind. It was a signal that she was breaking a multi-generational cycle of enablement. When you let them, you aren't just letting them fail. You are letting yourself be the bad guy in their story so you can be the healthy person in yours. When you make a let them decision and the guilt hits, name the feeling. Say, this is the old me trying to take the wheel. The 24-hour silence. Do not apologize or explain your decision for 24 hours. Most of us explain just to ease our own guilt, which actually weakens our boundary. Check the evidence. Ask yourself, am I actually hurting them or am I just stopping them from using me? Repeat this mantra. I am allowed to be okay, even if they are not.
The bottom line, guilt is the price of admission for a life of freedom. If you wait for the guilt to go away before you act, you will be waiting forever. But life isn't just about the people in your inner circle. Sometimes the stress comes from looking at everyone else's perfect life on your screen. In Chapter 9, we tackle the monster of the modern age. Yes, life is unfair. How to stop chronic comparison and start running your own race. I'll see you there. We've all done it. You're having a perfectly fine Tuesday until you pick up your phone. You scroll for 5 minutes and suddenly your life feels small. You see someone from high school hitting a business milestone, a stranger with a perfect body on a beach in Bali, or a friend buying a house that makes yours look like a starter kit. In an instant, your gratitude is gone. You're stuck in the why not me loop. You feel like you're running a race where everyone else started 10 miles ahead of you. And here is the reality. You're right. Life is unfair. Some people have better genetics, more money, or just plain luck. But your obsession with their unfair advantage is the very thing keeping you stuck at the starting line. It's time to apply the let them rule to the entire world. Let them have more than you. The reason comparison hurts so much is that your subconscious treats life like a zero-sum game. You think that if someone else is winning, there is somehow less win left for you. But life is an open-world game with infinite paths. When you let them have their success, you stop wasting your mental battery life on a highlight reel that isn't even the full story. The let them mindset in comparison is about radical acceptance. Let them be ahead in their race, so I can finally start running mine.
David was a freelance developer in Austin. He was talented, but he was miserable because he spent hours every morning on LinkedIn tracking his former colleagues who had landed C-suite roles or exited their startups for millions. He felt like a failure at 32. David decided to try the let them pivot. Whenever he saw a big announcement from a rival, instead of closing his laptop in frustration, he would say, let them be successful. Let them have the big exit. That has nothing to do with my code today. By letting them win in his mind, the noise stopped. He stopped trying to show them and started building things he actually cared about. 6 months later, David landed his biggest contract ever. Not because he caught up to them, but because he finally put 100% of his focus on his own screen. He realized that the time he spent envying them was the exact time he needed to surpass his own limits.
David's breakthrough happened because he realized that envy is just a poorly disguised desire. When you feel that sting of comparison, it's actually your subconscious pointing at something you want. Instead of letting that sting paralyze you, let them own it. Use their success as proof that it's possible, then immediately turn your eyes back to your own work. When you stop resisting their success, you stop being a victim of it. Next time you feel the comparison sting while scrolling, acknowledge the win. Say, let them have that. It looks great on them. The full story reminder. Remind yourself, I am comparing my behind the scenes to their highlight reel. The pivot question. Ask yourself, what is one small thing I can do for my goals in the next 10 minutes? Repeat this mantra. Their success is not my failure. The bottom line, you are the only person in the world who can live your life. Don't let someone else's highlight reel become the script for your misery. But what happens when you're not just watching strangers, but trying to navigate your own social circle? Why does it feel so lonely at the top, or even in the middle? In Chapter 10, we're diving into the truth about adult connections. The truth about adult friendships. Why letting go is the only way to stay connected. I'll see you there. Have you ever looked at your contact list and wondered what happened? There are people you used to talk to every single day, people who knew your deepest secrets, and now you barely know what city they live in. Maybe you feel a twinge of guilt. Maybe you feel resentful that they stopped calling. We tend to treat friendship like a contract that should last forever. When a friend drifts away or when the vibe isn't there anymore, we try to force it. We send the "we should catch up" texts that we don't really mean, or we get angry when they don't show up for us the way they used to. But here is the truth that will save you a lifetime of heartbreak. Not everyone is meant to travel the whole distance with you. Friendships and adulthood aren't failing just because they change. They are evolving. And if you want to find the people who truly belong in your current season, you have to apply the rule. Let them go. Think of your life like a 3-story house. The first floor, the patio, this is where most people belong. It's for casual acquaintances, coworkers, and people you enjoy in passing. The second floor, the living room, this is for friends you share history with, but perhaps not your daily life. The third floor, the inner circle, this is reserved for the few who truly get you. The mistake we make is trying to pull everyone onto the third floor, or feeling guilty when someone moves from the third floor back down to the patio. The let them rule for friendship is about acceptance of placement. When you let people be where they naturally fit, the friction disappears.
Take Sarah, a marketing director in Atlanta. Her best friend from college, Jen, was moving in a completely different direction. Jen wanted to party. Sarah wanted to build her business and start a family. Every time they met, it was awkward. Sarah felt judged, and Jen felt ignored. Sarah spent years trying to save the friendship. She'd invite Jen to things she knew Jen would hate, then get upset when Jen was a bad friend. Finally, Sarah used the let them pivot. She said, "Let Jen be exactly who she is, and let me be exactly who I am. If we don't click right now, that's okay." She stopped forcing the weekly calls. She stopped the renovation project. A strange thing happened. Without the pressure of Sarah's expectations, the resentment vanished. They became great holiday friends. By letting go of the old version of the friendship, Sarah found the space to meet 2 new women who were in the exact same life stage as her. She didn't lose a friend. She gained a life that fit. Sarah's breakthrough was realizing that forced connection is just a polite form of control. Your subconscious stays in a state of social debt when you try to maintain friendships that have naturally expired. When you let them drift, you aren't being mean, you are being honest. This honesty clears the mental clutter and allows you to put your 100% battery life into the few people who actually nourish your soul. Take a look at your top 5 most frequent social interactions. The energy check. Do you feel recharged or drained after talking to them? The let them test. If you stopped being the one to initiate everything, would the relationship still exist? The placement. If they feel like a patio friend, let them stay on the patio. Stop trying to drag them upstairs. Repeat this mantra. I release the need to be everything to everyone. The bottom line, real friendship is a gift, not a chore. If it has to be forced, it's probably not for you in this season. But once you've cleared the space, how do you actually find the third floor people? How do you build the kind of connection that doesn't feel like work? In Chapter 11, we're moving from letting go to leaning in. How to build your best life friendships. The art of authentic attraction. See you there. So you've applied the let them theory. You've let the toxic friends drift away. You've stopped the emotional renovation of people who didn't want to change. And suddenly it's a Friday night and your phone is a little quieter than it used to be.
that silence can be terrifying. Your brain might tell you, see, I'm alone now. This let them stuff just made me lonely. But I want you to look at that silence differently. That isn't loneliness, that is space. You have finally cleared the weeds out of your garden, and for the first time, there is room for something beautiful to grow. The question isn't, how do I find more friends? The question is, how do I become a magnet for the right ones?
In the US social culture, we're taught to network and be likable. We wear masks to fit in, but masks only attract other masks. The let them approach to building new friendships is about congruence. It means you let yourself be seen exactly as you are, with your weird hobbies, your firm boundaries, and your big goals. When you stop trying to be everything to everyone, you start being everything to someone. You don't find your tribe by searching for them. You find them by standing still in your own truth and letting them find you.
Maya was a 40-year-old entrepreneur in Denver. She had spent years trying to fit into the country club social scene because she thought that's what successful people did. She was surrounded by people, but she felt completely alone because she was hiding her true self, a sci-fi nerd who loved deep conversations about philosophy. Maya decided to use the let me era mindset. She quit the club. She stopped pretending to care about gossip. Instead, she started a small philosophy and sci-fi meetup. At the first meeting, only 2 people showed up. Her old brain said, "This is a failure." But her new brain said, "Let it be small. Let me be me." Within 6 months, those 2 people became her best friends. They introduced her to a whole community of thinkers. By letting them see the real Maya, the one she used to hide, she attracted the best life friendships she had been craving for decades. She didn't have to work to keep them because they were attracted to the real her, not the mask.
Maya's success happened because she realized that authenticity is a filter, not a barrier. When you are yourself, you will inevitably drive away the wrong people. That is a good thing. Every person you let go because they don't click with the real you is one less seat taken by someone who doesn't belong at your table. Your subconscious stops fearing rejection and starts valuing selection.
To attract your tribe, you have to send out a clear signal. This week, the truth share. In a social setting, share one unpopular opinion or one weird hobby you usually hide. The no mask meeting. Go to one event or meeting and promise yourself you won't try to impress anyone. Just listen and speak the truth. The vulnerability lead. Ask someone you admire for their honest advice or help. Vulnerability is the fastest bridge to the 3rd floor. Repeat this mantra. I am not for everyone, and that is my greatest strength.
The bottom line, your best life friends are looking for you too. But they can't find you if you're hiding behind a version of yourself that doesn't exist. But even with the best friends in the world, people still fail us. They change. They make mistakes. How do you know when to let them stay and when to let them go for good? In Chapter 12, we're dealing with the hardest part of growth. Why some friendships naturally fade, and how to let them go without guilt. I'll see you there.
We've all had that friendship that feels like a pair of shoes you've outgrown. You remember loving them, you remember the miles you walked together, but now, every time you put them on, they pinch. Every conversation feels like an obligation. Every catch-up feels like a chore. And because we're good people, we feel a deep sense of guilt. We think that if a friendship ends, it means someone did something wrong. We think that forever is the only metric of success. But what if I told you that a friendship ending isn't a failure? What if it's just finished? In nature, trees don't apologize for dropping their leaves when the season changes. It's time to stop apologizing for outgrowing people who are no longer walking in your direction. It's time to let them fade.
In physics, entropy tells us that things naturally move from order to disorder unless energy is added. The same applies to human connection. Not all friendships are meant to be lifelong. Some are life stage. They were the perfect friend for when you were a struggling student, or a new parent, or a junior employee. But as you evolve, your frequency changes. The let them mindset here is about release without resentment. You don't need a big blow-up or a dramatic fight to end a friendship. You can simply stop adding energy to a connection that no longer serves either of you.
Elena, a graphic designer in Chicago, had a best friend named Jess. They had been inseparable since they were 15. But at 35, they had nothing in common. Jess spent every call talking about high school drama. Elena wanted to talk about her new business and her sobriety. Elena felt like a traitor for wanting to distance herself. She kept forcing the dinners, but she'd leave feeling drained and misunderstood. Finally, Elena used the let them technique. She didn't send a breakup text. She simply stopped being the one to keep the relationship on life support. When Jess texted, Elena was kind, but she didn't overextend. She said, "Let Jess be on her path. Let me be on mine. We aren't the same people anymore, and that's okay." By letting the friendship fade gracefully, Elena stopped the resentment from building. A year later, they ran into each other and shared a warm, genuine hug. Because they hadn't fought to stay together, they could actually enjoy the memory of who they used to be. Elena realized that by letting Jess go, she was actually honoring the history they shared, rather than dragging it through the mud of a forced present. Elena's breakthrough was realizing that clinging to a dead friendship is a disservice to both people. When you let them fade, you aren't just freeing yourself, you are freeing them to find friends who are actually on their current wavelength. Your subconscious stops seeing goodbye as a tragedy and starts seeing it as a necessary pruning for new growth. If you have a friendship that feels heavy, try this. The gratitude audit. Write down 3 things that person taught you or 1 season they helped you get through. The permission slip. Write down, I give myself permission to stop being the engine of this relationship. The silent blessing. The next time you see their name, instead of feeling guilt, say, I'm glad we had our time. I wish you the best on your path. Repeat this mantra. I don't have to hold on to everyone to be a good person.
The bottom line, a friendship doesn't have to last forever to be meaningful. Some people are just beautiful chapters in a much longer book. But after we've cleared the old and invited the new, how do we handle the real changes? The ones that happen inside the people who actually stay? How do you drive real change in the people you love without becoming a control freak again? In Chapter 13, we're going to look at the only way people actually evolve. People only change when they want to. The power of your influence. I'll see you there. How much of your life have you spent acting as a life coach for people who didn't hire you? You see their potential. You see exactly what they need to do to fix their health, their career, or their marriage. And so you push, you nag, you send them articles they don't read and give them advice they didn't ask for. You think that if you just find the right combination of words, you can finally unlock the door to their transformation. But here is the cold, hard truth. The door to change is locked from the inside. Every ounce of energy you spend trying to force someone to change is energy you are stealing from your own growth. It's time to stop being a fixer and start being a force. It's time to let them be stuck until they are ready to move. There is a massive difference between control and influence. Control is trying to grab the steering wheel of someone else's car. It creates friction, resentment, and rebellion. Influence is driving your own car so exceptionally well that people pull over just to ask how you're doing it. The let them approach to change is about radical autonomy. You allow people the dignity of their own mistakes. When you stop trying to save them, you remove the safe net that allowed them to stay stagnant. Often, the fastest way to get someone to change is to stop helping them stay the same. Mark, a fitness enthusiast from Denver, was married to Sarah, who struggled with low energy and a sedentary lifestyle.
For years, Mark tried to fix her. He'd buy her gym memberships, hide the junk food, and give her lectures on longevity. Sarah just got more resentful, and Mark just got more frustrated. Their house felt like a battlefield. Finally, Mark applied the let them rule. He said to himself, "Let her eat what she wants. Let her stay on the couch. I am going to stop being her personal trainer and start being her husband." Mark shifted his focus entirely to his own let me era. He trained for a triathlon. He cooked healthy meals for himself. He radiated energy and joy. He stopped complaining about her and started enjoying his own life. 3 months later, something shifted. Without the pressure of Mark's control, Sarah started asking questions. She saw the change in him and wanted it for herself. She joined him for a walk, not because he nagged her, but because his light was more convincing than his lectures. Mark realized that by letting her be, he actually gave her the space to choose a new version of herself.
Mark's success happened because he stopped triggering Sarah's psychological reactance. That's our natural instinct to do the opposite of what we're told just to reclaim our autonomy. When you let them stay exactly as they are, you remove the villain they were fighting against, you. Without a villain to blame, they are forced to look in the mirror. Your subconscious stops feeling responsible for their outcome, which, ironically, makes you a far more powerful influence. For the next 7 days, I want you to go on an advice fast. 0 unsolicited advice. Even if you see them making a mistake, stay silent. Focus on the reveal. Instead of telling them what to do, show them what you are doing. Let your results speak for you. The validation pivot. When they complain, instead of offering a solution, just say, "That sounds tough. I trust you to figure it out." Repeat this mantra. My example is my only real authority.
The bottom line, you cannot breathe for someone else, no matter how much you love them. But when you breathe deeply for yourself, you remind them that it's possible. But what if their stuckness isn't just a bad habit? What if they are truly suffering and your instinct to help is coming from a place of deep compassion? How do you help without enabling? In Chapter 14, we're going to draw the most important line of all, the rescue trap, why your help is actually hurting them. I'll see you there.
Do you feel like you're constantly swimming with someone on your back? You're exhausted, your lungs are burning, and you're barely keeping both of your heads above water. You think you're being a hero. You think you're the only one who can save them from their own bad decisions, their financial mess, or their emotional chaos. But have you ever noticed that the more you save them, the more saving they seem to need? Here's the hard truth. When you become someone's permanent safety net, you rob them of the only thing that could actually save them, their own strength. Every time you swoop in to pay the bill, fix the mistake, or smooth over the drama, you are sending a subconscious message that says, I don't believe you are capable of doing this yourself. It's time to stop being a life raft and start being a shoreline. It's time to let them feel the weight of their own life.
In psychology, we talk about natural consequences. It is the most powerful teacher on the planet. If you touch a hot stove, you get burned, and you learn not to touch it again. The rescue trap happens when you step in between the stove and the hand. By preventing the burn, you are preventing the lesson. The let them approach to helping is about empathetic non-interference. It means you love them from the sidelines, but you refuse to play the game for them. You allow them to feel the sting of their choices, so they can finally develop the reflex to change.
Linda, a business owner in Seattle, had a son named Chris. Chris was 28, highly educated, but couldn't keep a job for more than 3 months. Every time he quit or got fired, Linda would pay his rent, revamp his resume, and call her friends to get him a new interview. She thought she was being a supportive mother. Finally, Linda realized she was caught in the rescue trap. She applied the let them rule. When Chris lost his latest job and came to her for rent money, Linda did the hardest thing she had ever done. She said,
I love you, and I believe in you, but I am going to let you figure out how to pay your rent this month. I won't be writing a check. Chris panicked. He got angry. He called her cold. But for the first time in his life, because the Bank of Mom was closed, Chris couldn't afford to be unlucky anymore. He took a job waiting tables, a job he previously thought was beneath him, just to keep the lights on. Within 6 months, that survival mode taught him more about responsibility than 20 years of Linda's help ever did. Linda realized that by letting him struggle, she finally gave him the chance to become a man.
Linda's breakthrough was understanding that comfort is the enemy of growth. When you let them face the consequences, you aren't being cruel, you are being honest. Your subconscious stops carrying the guilt of the fixer and starts holding the dignity of the believer. You are showing them the ultimate respect, the belief that they are strong enough to survive their own mistakes. The next time someone you love comes to you with a crisis caused by their own repeated behavior, the 24-hour hold, listen empathetically, but do not offer a solution or money for 24 hours. The empowerment question. Ask, that sounds like a tough spot. What is your plan to handle it? The shoreline support. Offer emotional support. I'm here for you, but withhold the bailout. I can't do it for you. Repeat this mantra. I love you enough to let you struggle.
The bottom line, you are not responsible for carrying people. You are responsible for loving people. And sometimes, the highest form of love is stepping out of the way. But how do you know when you've stepped back too far? How do you maintain the influence we talked about in the last chapter while staying on the shoreline? In Chapter 15, we're going to master the balance, decoding your power, how to be an anchor without being a burden. I'll see you there.
For most of your life, you've been a tugboat. You spend all your energy huffing and puffing, trying to pull everyone else's massive ship into the harbor. You think that if you just pull harder, they'll finally get to where they need to be. But all you've ended up with is a burnt-out engine and a rope that's about to snap. What if you stopped pulling? There is another way to be powerful in someone's life. It's called being an anchor. An anchor doesn't shout, it doesn't nag, it doesn't break a sweat. It just stays grounded in its own depth. When the storm hits, the ship doesn't need a tugboat to pull it. It needs an anchor to keep it from drifting away. It's time to decode your real power. Let them find their way back to your stability. In physics, the larger an object is, the more gravity it exerts. In psychology, the more grounded you are in your own let me era, the more emotional gravity you possess. When you stop being a burden, the person who is always complaining, fixing, or needing a specific reaction, you become an anchor. You become the most stable person in the room. People are naturally drawn to stability. By letting them drift, you actually become the very person they want to come back to when they are ready to change. Robert was a business owner in Austin whose family holidays were legendary for their drama. His siblings were always fighting, and his parents were always picking sides. Robert used to be the mediator, the tugboat trying to pull everyone into a peaceful dinner. He'd leave every holiday exhausted and resentful. One Thanksgiving, Robert decided to be the anchor. He told himself, let them argue. Let them be dramatic. Let me be the calmest person at this table. He didn't intervene when his sister started bickering. He didn't take the bait when his dad made a political comment. He just sat there, enjoyed his meal, and spoke with kindness and clarity. He was an anchor. The result? Because Robert wasn't providing the tension for them to pull against, the arguments fizzled out. By the end of the night, his younger sister pulled him aside and asked, "How are you so calm lately? Everything feels so heavy, but you seem solid." Robert didn't have to fix them to influence them. His stability was the most powerful thing in the house. Robert's breakthrough was realizing that your silence is often more influential than your speech. When you let them be in chaos while you remain an anchor, you are modeling a new way of existing.
Your subconscious stops feeling the need to earn love through labor and starts realizing that you are valuable simply because you are unshakable. You aren't a burden to their growth. You are the solid ground that makes growth possible. Next time you are in a high-tension situation, physical grounding, feel your feet flat on the floor. Imagine you are 1,000 pounds of solid steel. The non-react response. If someone tries to pull you into their drama, give them a warm, neutral look. Don't judge, just observe. The stability statement. If asked for your opinion in a fight, say, "I love you both, and I'm going to let you two work that out. I'm just happy to be here." Repeat this mantra. I am an anchor, not a tugboat. The bottom line, you don't have to do the work for them to be the reason they choose to do the work. Be the person they can rely on, not the person they have to escape from. But what happens when the chaos isn't a person, but a situation where you feel you must help? How do you support someone who is truly suffering without falling back into the rescue trap? In Chapter 16, we're going to master the hardest balance of all: how to support without saving. The art of the helping hand. I'll see you there.
What do you do when someone you love is truly hurting? When they've lost a job, gone through a breakup, or drowning in a dark season of life? Your heart breaks for them. You want to reach into their life and pull the pain out with your bare hands. You start thinking for them, acting for them, and trying to solve their problems before they even ask. You think this is the definition of a good person. But here is the paradox. The more you try to carry someone's pain, the less they learn how to walk through it. When you save someone, you are the hero of the story. But when you support someone, they remain the hero. It's time to learn the quiet power of standing beside someone without taking over their journey. It's time to let them be in pain and let yourself just be there.
Support is like being a coach on the sidelines. You provide water, you offer encouragement, and you see the whole field. But you never run onto the grass and kick the ball for them. The let them approach to suffering is about bearing witness. It means acknowledging their pain without trying to fix it immediately. When you try to fix pain, you are subconsciously telling the other person that their feelings are a problem to be solved. When you just support them, you are telling them that they are strong enough to feel this and survive.
Elena, a small business owner from Seattle, had a best friend, Mark, who had just gone through a devastating divorce. Elena's first instinct was to fix it. She spent weeks calling him with advice, setting him up on dates he didn't want, and trying to cheer him up with constant distractions. She was exhausted, and Mark was becoming more withdrawn. He felt like he was failing at getting better. Finally, Elena used the let them rule. She stopped the advice. She stopped the pressure. The next time they met, she just sat with him in the silence. She said, "Let Mark be sad. Let this season be hard. I am just going to be here." Instead of saying, "You should do X," she said, "I'm here for whatever you need." Because Elena stopped trying to save him, Mark finally felt safe enough to actually process his grief. He didn't need a hero. He needed a witness. Elena realized that her support was far more powerful than her saving ever was. She didn't lose her friend to the darkness. She held the flashlight while he walked out of it. Elena's breakthrough happened when she realized that empathy does not require you to drown alongside the other person. When you let them have their own emotional experience, you maintain your anchor status. Your subconscious stops feeling the rescue guilt and starts practicing deep presence. You learn that the most helpful thing you can offer someone isn't a solution. It's the belief that they are capable of finding their own. Next time a friend or loved one is venting or hurting, the fix-it filter. Before you speak, ask yourself, did they ask for a solution or do they just need to be heard? Mirror, don't map. Instead of giving advice, mirror their feelings. Say,
I can see how much this hurts, or that sounds incredibly heavy. The open-handed offer. Ask one question. How can I best support you right now? And then let them tell you. Repeat this mantra. I am a witness to your strength, not a manager of your pain.
The bottom line, you are the shoreline, not the life raft. Stay solid, stay present, and let them find their own way to land. But what about the most intimate connection of all? How do you let them when it's the person you share your bed with? How do you build a love that doesn't feel like a constant negotiation of control? In Chapter 17, we're going to the heart of the matter. Choose the love you deserve. Why letting them show you who they are is the ultimate relationship hack. I'll see you there. How many years have you spent in love with a potential? You aren't actually in a relationship with the person sitting across from you. You're in a relationship with a version of them that you've edited in your mind. You tell yourself, if they just worked less, if they were just more romantic, or if they finally dealt with their past, then we'd be perfect. You spend your days auditioning them for a role they never signed up to play. You nudge, you hint, and you hope. But here is the most expensive mistake you can make in life. Ignoring the truth because you're in love with the lie. It is time to stop the audition. It's time to stop the coaching. It's time for the ultimate relationship hack. Let them show you exactly who they are, and then believe them. In behavioral psychology, we say that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. When you apply "let them" to your romantic life, you stop trying to influence their choices, so you can finally observe their choices. If you have to remind them to respect you, to prioritize you, or to be honest with you, you aren't in a partnership. You are in a renovation project. When you let go of the control, you get to see the raw data. And that data, as painful as it might be, is the only thing that can set you free to find the love you actually deserve.
Rachel, a 32-year-old architect from Seattle, had been with her boyfriend Mark for 5 years. Mark was great, but he had a commitment phobia. Rachel spent years dropping hints about marriage, sending him Zillow links, and trying to be the perfect partner so he'd finally feel safe enough to propose. She was the director, producer, and lead actor in a movie called Waiting for Mark. Finally, Rachel decided to use the "let them" rule. She stopped talking about the future. She stopped asking, "Where is this going?" She simply said to herself, "Let Mark show me what he wants. If he wants a future with me, he will build it. If he doesn't, let me see that clearly." Without Rachel's constant pushing, the truth emerged within 3 months. Mark didn't step up. He stayed exactly where he was. He was comfortable with the status quo. It was devastating for Rachel, but it was also a gift. She realized she had been holding the relationship together with her own bare hands. By letting him show her his lack of commitment, she finally had the clarity to walk away. 6 months later, she met someone who didn't need to be convinced to love her. Rachel realized that the only thing keeping her from the right person was her refusal to see the wrong one for who he really was. Rachel's breakthrough happened because she traded comfort for clarity. Most of us are so afraid of being alone that we would rather manage a mediocre relationship than face the truth of a failing one. When you let them show you who they are, your subconscious stops living in a state of hopeful anxiety and starts living in grounded reality. You realize that you don't need to change someone to be loved. You just need to find someone who doesn't need to be changed. For the next 30 days, I want you to stop all relationship maintenance that involves changing your partner. Stop the reminders. If they forget an anniversary or a chore, let them forget. Don't nag. Watch the initiative. Observe how much effort they put in when you aren't the one driving the car. The believe them check. When they show you a red flag, believe them the first time. Don't make an excuse for them. Repeat this mantra. I deserve a love that doesn't require me to lose myself.
The bottom line, you can't build a skyscraper on a swamp. Let them show you the foundation they're offering, and if it's not solid, have the courage to walk away. Now that you've seen the truth in others, it's time for the most important truth of all. How do you take all this energy you've gathered, this let them power, and turn it into a fuel for your own greatness? In Chapter 18, we're entering a new phase, the Let Me era, how to become the most important person in your own life. I'll see you there.
Have you ever felt like a guest star in your own life? You spend 40 hours a week managing your boss's stress, 20 hours managing your kids' schedules, and 10 hours managing your partner's moods. By the time you get to Sunday night, you have exactly 0% left for the person who actually matters, you. You've become a master of them. You know their triggers, their coffee orders, and their flaws. But when was the last time you checked in with your goals? When was the last time you moved because you wanted to, not because someone else needed you to? The let them theory was never about being passive. It was a strategic move to clear the deck. Now that you've stopped wasting energy on their drama, it's time to launch the most important project of your life. Welcome to your Let Me era.
In psychology, we call this internal locus of control. It's the belief that you, and only you, are responsible for the outcomes of your life. For years, your locus of control was external. You were waiting for them to be nicer so you could be happy. You were waiting for them to work harder so you could relax. The Let Me era is about flipping that script. It's the radical realization that your life doesn't start when they change. Your life starts when you decide to move regardless of them. It is the shift from, how do I fix this situation, to, how do I show up for myself in this situation?
David was a 45-year-old accountant in Chicago. He had always wanted to write a book, but he never had the time. Why? Because he was the fixer for his entire extended family. If his cousin needed a ride, David went. If his sister needed tax help, David did it. He was a martyr to everyone else's needs. David finally applied the let me rule. When his brother called asking for another weekend of help moving furniture, David said the two most powerful words in the world. Let me. He said, I'm going to let you find another way to move that couch, because I'm letting myself have this Saturday to write. It felt cold at first. His brother was annoyed, but David sat in that discomfort and wrote 10 pages. By letting them handle their own lives, David finally gave himself the permission to be the protagonist of his own. 3 months later, he didn't just have a hobby, he had a draft. He realized that the only person holding him back wasn't his family. It was his own refusal to prioritize his let me. David's breakthrough was realizing that every yes to someone else's drama is a no to your own soul. When you enter your let me era, your subconscious stops seeking safety in being needed and starts seeking fulfillment in being bold. You aren't taking anything away from others. You are simply stopping the theft of your own potential. You learn that a let me life is far more inspiring to others than a let them control me life. This week, I want you to claim one let me hour every single day. The hard boundary. Identify one task you usually do for someone else that they can do themselves. Stop doing it. Let them. The self-investment. During that reclaimed time, do one thing that moves your needle. Not the house, not the kids, your goals. The main character question. Before you react to someone today, ask, is this move helping my character arc, or am I just an extra in theirs? Repeat this mantra. I am the CEO of my time, my energy, and my future.
The bottom line, your life is not a dress rehearsal. Stop playing small so other people can feel big. It's time to take center stage. But once you start moving, how do you handle the people who are still trying to pull you back? How do you maintain this let me energy when life gets loud and the old habits start knocking? In Chapter 19, we're going to master the art of the upgrade, the level up, how to navigate the new you in an old world. I'll see you there. You've done the work. You've set the boundaries. You've started your let me era. And for a week or two, you feel like a superhero. But then it happens. Your old life, your old friends, your old boss, even your old self starts pulling on you like a giant rubber band. They don't like the new you. The new you isn't as convenient as the old one. The new you doesn't say yes to everything. The new you has a spine. And they will try to pull you back into the old you using guilt, drama, or nostalgia. They'll say, "You've changed," or "You're acting differently." Here's the secret. Of course you've changed. That was the whole point. When you level up, you create a gap between where you are and where they are. And the only way to close that gap without shrinking yourself is to let them be uncomfortable with your growth. In physics, friction is the resistance that one surface encounters when moving over another. In life, social friction is the resistance you encounter when you move faster than your environment. When you apply "let them" to your own growth, you stop trying to convince people to support your new lifestyle. You stop trying to make everyone okay with your boundaries. You realize that their discomfort isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you are officially outgrowing the old world. Thomas was a teacher in Seattle who decided to leave the profession to start his own consulting firm. His old colleagues, people he'd had lunch with for a decade, were not supportive. They made snide comments about him selling out and constantly reminded him of the security he was leaving behind. Thomas felt the pull of the rubber band. He wanted to explain himself. He wanted them to understand his vision. Instead, he used the "let them" rule. When they criticized him, he thought, "Let them be cynical. Let them be stuck in their own fears. Let me be the entrepreneur I'm becoming." He stopped trying to bring them along for the ride. He stayed kind, but he stayed distant. Within 6 months, the friction disappeared, not because they changed, but because Thomas had moved so far ahead that their voices couldn't reach him anymore. He realized that by letting them have their opinions, he finally had the silence he needed to build his empire. Thomas's breakthrough was realizing that you cannot fly with people who are trying to clip your wings. Your subconscious is hardwired to want to belong, but in a level-up phase, belonging to the wrong group is a death sentence for your dreams. When you let them judge your growth, you protect your mental battery for the work that actually matters. You aren't being arrogant, you are being protective of the only life you have. This week, when someone questions your new habits or your "let them" attitude, the 3-second silence. When they criticize you, wait 3 seconds. The non-defensive affirmation. Say, "I hear you. This is just what works for me right now." And then stop talking. The new circle search. Find one person who is already where you want to be. Start listening to their voice more than the voices of your past. Repeat this mantra. I am not required to stay small so you can stay comfortable. The bottom line? Growth is lonely at first, but the view from the top is worth the quiet of the climb. Let them stay at the base of the mountain while you find your new horizon. We've covered the people, the stress, the love, and the growth. Now it's time to bring it all home. How do you make sure this isn't just a phase, but a permanent way of being? In our final chapter, we're sealing the deal. Chapter 20. Your Let Me era is here, the final command. I'll see you at the finish line. We have traveled through the storms of other people's drama. We faced the rescue trap, the comparison monster, and the guilt trap. You have looked at the people you love, the people who drain you, and the person in the mirror with a brand new set of eyes. But information is not transformation. Knowing the let them theory doesn't change your life. Living it does. Today, you are standing at a crossroads. Behind you is the person who was exhausted, managed, and controlled by the world. In front of you is a life where you are the master of your own energy. The Let Me era isn't a goal you reach.
It's a command you give to yourself every single morning.
The ultimate secret of the let them theory is that it was never actually about them. It was a deconstruction of your own ego. We try to control others because we don't yet trust ourselves to handle the outcome of their choices. Radical self-ownership means you trust yourself so deeply that you no longer need the world to behave. You are the architect of your peace. When you let them, you aren't being small. You are becoming so large that their behavior can no longer cast a shadow over your soul. Instead of a story about Sarah or David, I want you to imagine a story about you. Imagine it's 1 year from today. You wake up and look at your phone. There's a stressful text from a family member. You read it, and instead of your heart racing, you just think, let them feel that way. And you put the phone down to finish your coffee. You go to work and a project fails. Instead of spiraling, you say, let it be a mess. Let me find the fix. You look at your social circle and it's smaller, but it's stronger. You are surrounded by people who don't need you to fix them because you stopped auditioning for the role of the fixer. This version of you is calm. This version of you is productive. This version of you is free. That person isn't a fantasy. They are the result of every let them decision you make, starting right now. You didn't find this person. You built them, one boundary at a time.
The breakthrough you've had in this book will fade if you don't feed it. Your subconscious will try to drift back to the old way because it's familiar. You must treat your let me era like a garden. You have to pull the weeds of them every single day so that the flowers of me can grow. This is the shift from being a victim of your environment to being the creator of your reality. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to take a deep breath and make a vow to yourself. The Daily Drop. Every morning, identify one thing you are going to let be so you can focus on yourself. The Let Me mission. Write down the one big thing you've been putting off because you were too busy managing everyone else. That is your priority now. The Mirror command. Look at yourself and say, I am letting go of who I was supposed to be for them so I can finally be who I am for me. Repeat this mantra. Their world is theirs. My life is mine.
The bottom line, you have the tools, you have the truth, and you have the power. You don't need permission to be happy. You don't need their approval to be successful. And you certainly don't need their change to be at peace. Let them be wrong. Let them be loud. Let them be exactly who they are. And as for you, let yourself be great. Go out there and live your let me era. You've earned it.